Hi everyone. I'm Lili Piraki. I'm a journalist, and this is a show I'm starting out with inspiring women. And it's my first interview today with Erin, and I'm very, very excited about that. It's all about women and women that have managed to stand out and change their careers and their path and have found the strength to be their amazing self and be incredible. These are the women that I am after, and I would like to talk with and learn things about them and about their life. And I'm very happy today to have as my guest Erin. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Lily. Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor to be here.
Hi, it's also my honor. It's great to have you here. And so let me introduce you a little bit. So Erin is an educator. She's an author. She is a spiritual life coach, and she's also a yoga teacher. Wow, so many things. So
I know, too many. No, I'm just kidding.
okay, so I want us to start by you telling us a few things about you, your background, your studies, where it all began.
Sure. Um, yeah, I think, like you said, everything in my life is really driven by that, that simple sentence of helping people kind of reclaim their personal power and feel confident in themselves. I feel like in my life, I went through so many things, and that was kind of like in every hardship I faced in my life, that was the underlying thing I had to work through every time. So when I had health issues, when I got sober, when I moved to a different country, when I got my graduate degree, I mean, all of that, it just felt like there was just so much. I feel like, especially for women, there's so much like you have to push so many things away that are trying to take over you and take over your energy and just want to, like, we just get pushed in so many ways, and it's really hard for us to focus on who am I, what do I want. And usually when we feel upset or disconnected from something, it's because we're trying to push ourselves into something or in a way of doing something that doesn't feel right with us. And so I feel like for me, so many of the hardships and things I went through in my life, that was kind of the underlying theme of just like connecting back to myself. And so for me, I was born in the United States, in a suburb outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And I was born and raised there. I did high school, my undergraduate degree there. And then I got my master's degree from the University of Michigan in higher education with a focus on diversity and social justice. So I love education. I think it's a very empowering tool. I think it's very important. And then along the way of that, I thought was going to be my life path. I went through some, we'll get into it in the interview, I'm sure, but I went through some personal things that kind of pushed me to do more work around being a life coach, around writing books, around being a yoga teacher. So just things that I didn't expect to happen, but became very important part of myself and my life. And so this kind of, now I'm in a good spot of a lot of those things have merged together, but they weren't my initial plan, I think, when I started out on what I wanted to be when I was growing up.
So you started out as an educator, right? And at what point did you decide that this was not the only thing you wanted to do?
I feel like for me, why I was drawn to education in the first place is the same reason why I was drawn to everything else I do in my life. So when I used to teach middle school, and I just want to say I respect teachers so much. They work so hard. They have one of the hardest jobs in the world with very little, I feel like, support or social support in a lot of countries. So shout out teachers, love you, K-12 teachers. And it wasn't like I loved math or I loved, I loved writing, but I got into it because I was like, okay, I know I can connect with students. And it was around the understanding of self-empowerment again. So it was like I wanted more to connect with them and be a positive role model for them, more so than, I cared about teaching pre-algebra. Like it was fine because that was the path I had to take and all that, but it wasn't, that wasn't my main goal for doing it. But as I went through K-12 education, I feel like I come from a background where, we're a little bit, the types of jobs, it was more focused on you go to college to like get a clear job afterwards. So if I had to do college all over again, I probably would have studied like international studies or international relations or something like this. But from where I was, and I didn't have like that broad of a sense of the world, from where I grew up and what I understood. So I was like, okay, education is a way to go. I also found out I didn't travel internationally until I got into university. And then I knew I wanted also to be able to move around the world. And I was like, well, education is everywhere. So that also seemed like a pretty easy, good thing to do with that. So I started with that, and then I lived in undergrad in Germany and Greece, and then in Italy for 2 summers. So that was kind of like the beginning of, hey, I learn a lot when I travel. The world is very big. There's a lot of people to connect with. And obviously, of course, traveling teaches you about yourself. So a lot of those experiences built up. And then by the end of my undergraduate degree, I just felt like because of my experiences at university and the way I had grown and changed when I was a college student, I felt like that was a place where I could still be an educator, but with a little bit more focus on like student development and for the students to develop as people. And so that's when I decided to get my master's degree in higher education. And so that just basically means like any type of work at a university besides being a professor. And so while that was happening, I got diagnosed with a health condition when I was right before I started graduate school, where I had a hormone imbalance. I had like really, just basically told me I was going to be overweight for the rest of my life. I was going to be infertile. I had to be on all these medicines, just like, a very shocking thing, very shocking diagnosis to get as a 21-year-old. And so I remember I just left the doctor's office and I was like, I don't want that to be my life. And so I just, went on the internet. This was like 2011. So the internet was like, it was helpful, but it wasn't like as much as it is now. And but I found this one woman who she had the diagnosis I had, and she kind of reversed it through healthy eating and through exercising, and then a lot of like looking at the self and changing that. And so I was her coaching client. This was again back before life coaching was like super popular or super, I didn't really get what it was, but I was like, she can help me, so I'll just do it. And so I worked with her for probably about 1.5 years. And then I went back to the doctor, and then my diagnosis was reversed, which was great and amazing. And then after that, she asked me to be a life coach under her, like for her company. And so I did that for a few years. And that was where I found out so many physical symptoms we have, or when we feel so uncomfortable physically, they're usually always connected to something emotionally or spiritually or some type of something going on there. And so I really believe, again, also like with my educational practice, that we have to look at everything with a holistic approach. We have to look at things, like, okay, you might have a physical symptom and we can't ignore that, but also where are you spiritually? Where are you emotionally? How do you feel about yourself? How's your connection with this? Who's your friends? What's your relationship like? I think all of it is connected. And so, I'm grateful for that health issues I had, because that pushed me into, after that, I got into like every single alternative everything under the sun. Like you name it, I've probably done it. It's how I got into yoga, I got into acupuncture, I got into EMDR, I got past life regressions done. I was always into astrology and tarot, like from when I was a teenager, but more intensely I looked at that. Like it felt more important to me then. So it was just kind of a catalyst for so many different things. And then eventually, just from doing that stuff for so long, I ended up just being a life coach on my own, because the woman I worked for, she's really amazing, but she decided she wanted to do something else with her life. So I just started to work for myself with clients that way. And then yoga, again, was also very important for my own healing practice. So I got a certification. So just a lot of the tools that I feel like were so helpful for me, I just have started to incorporate into my life.
I want to take you back at that point when you are diagnosed, because for me, it makes a great impression on me, the fact that you found the strength to deal with all this so quickly. Mm-hmm. And I would like, through you, to help other women that may be experiencing issues like that, or different but difficult issues. So what was, the point that you said, no, I will take my life in my hands, I will do what I have to do. What was that? What made you think like that?
I just feel like for me, I knew my body, and I knew that that was not the path I wanted to go on as a 21-year-old. I am so grateful for modern medicine, and I think it helps us so much. But for me, as someone who, you know, I live a sober lifestyle now, but, you know, started drinking and doing drugs at a very young age, like 12, 13, and then did not have super healthy eating patterns. And I went to the doctor because I had been on birth control from when I was 16 to 21. And then I stopped and I didn't get my period for 6 months. And then that's why I went. And, you know, after I got diagnosed, they were like, well, you have to go back on birth control and you have to take these other 2 medicines. And for me, I could feel in my body that birth control was part of the reason I was sick. And it ended up being that it had so much estrogen in it that my body stopped making estrogen, and then my hormones were out of balance. So I just knew that wasn't the path for me. And so I said, okay, if I'm really going to commit to this and really going to try to do something that feels like this is the right path, I'm going to give myself like 2 years to figure it out. And if not, then, you know, I'll see about going back on medicine. But for me, I just felt like there's no way this can be my life when I'm 21 years old. It was just like a hard no. And, you know, it's just really something that I was just not. I'm so grateful I listened to myself, but I just left that doctor's office. I had all the prescription in my hand. I remember it was in my car and I was just crying. And then I was like, okay, I can cry for one day. And then I'm going to tomorrow go home and look up stuff on the internet and figure something out.
Wow, amazing. And you said, I mean, now you had some addictions when you were at a younger age. Did all this help you go through that? I mean, did you start going through after you started having your coaching sessions, having all this that you started? Was it a journey that you did?
Yeah, of course. So it was actually, so I got diagnosed in April of 2011, and then I quit drinking that October 2011. So it was something I had been thinking about probably since the beginning of that year. Like, okay, why, you know, just starting to think. And it was, I don't know, I don't want to say funny, but I don't have a better word. That like, you know, I grew up, it was very aware in my family that like, hey, we know we have alcoholics in our family, we have addictive behavior. So it was things that I knew about growing up, but I didn't really ever, because where I grew up and just the culture in the United States especially is like so in your face, like, hell yeah, get drunk, do drugs, no problem. It's what everybody does. It was just very, very normalized. And so I feel like, again, also with my health condition, I was on a raw food diet for a year after I got diagnosed. Like it was just, I had to completely change everything. And then of course, part of that was like really eliminating sugar and of course, alcohol and drug use. So it was just something that I'm so grateful for. And it was definitely, I mean, it was wrapped into that. I feel like, I hope I would have gotten there eventually, because I feel like it was, you know, the older I got, the more I was thinking like, do I need to be like doing drugs and drinking alcohol anymore? But that was definitely like a kickstart with all of that. And then what I've learned about addiction as well, not just with drugs and alcohol, but with sugar, with shopping, with working, with whatever anyone is addicted to. It's just covering up like a lot of things we don't want to deal with in ourselves. And so instead of holding that space and feeling like we're capable of dealing with that, we just project that outward onto something, and we focus on that thing instead of like giving ourselves the love and care that we need. And so for me, I just feel like the longer I'm sober, the more apparent that is. And I get a lot of clients who also possibly are codependent, because that's another form, because it's just the focus on something outside of you and ignoring yourself, whether that's drugs, alcohol, another person, a romantic partner, your parents, your job, your food, your whatever, so there's a lot of codependent energy that I think is normalized in the world as well. And I had to look at that once I, got my diagnosis, got sober, all of that stuff.
You seem actually like a person that has it all figured out. Is that true? Do you actually get depressed, or do you feel that not everything is like that sometimes, that you're alone, that you don't have, that maybe you don't have someone to help you, or you cannot help yourself? Do you have that moment, and how do you deal with them? I mean, just because I'm hearing you and I'm saying, wow, does she ever lose it?
Mm-hmm. Nope, I have it all figured out. No, I'm just kidding. I have very extreme mental health things. I was on medicine at one point in my life, in SSRI, for depression for a little bit. And so I feel like, again, for me, like everything in my life, all my hardships have just forced me to not abandon myself and to not leave myself. And so that means when I'm going through a hard time, I know I need to take care of myself enough to ask a therapist for help, or, you know, I'm in AA, which is Alcoholics Anonymous, like amazing support program. Or it's one thing to know all these things intuitively or like understand them and me tell you about them. But when I have specific hardships in my life, that's like, you know, when the real test comes. And so I think, you know, I've been practicing radical acceptance. I've been practicing personal empowerment. I've been practicing like being honest about my life for a very long time, but it just is, you know, it's like they say, when you heal, there's always layers to peel back. I just feel like I have more and more things to deal with. And so it's more of me having way more advanced toolkit to cope with everything than being like immune to things. And I think for a long time, I thought like, oh, well, I'm healthy, I'm healed, so I'm not going to go through any of this stuff ever again, which is, you know, rookie mistake, because then you get tested by it again. And, you know, part of my spiritual journey is I converted to Islam also because I needed, all of these spiritual things were very helpful for me, but I needed to balance some type of physical reality things. And Islam really gave me that. For me, that structured religion, being able to like have a book to reference, being able to like pray a certain way, to fast, to have these rituals. It's a really, really beautiful religion. And for me, it really just, it was one of the missing pieces for, I mean, my spiritual practice that is so many things. And so of course, you know, we never become immune to human hardships, to emotions, to anything like that. And so for me, it was just really healthy and important to also get my ego checked and be like, just because I've been doing this for so long doesn't mean that I'm not going to go through any of this stuff ever again.
Now you talked about God. With what other beliefs have you gone through all your journey and has helped you be what you are and help other people?
I feel like for me, so in AA and Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the very beginning steps that you have to work is you have to accept a higher power. So they don't care what it could be, a rock outside in your garden, it could be God in a Catholic sense, it could be God in a Muslim sense, it could be, you know, whatever you want to worship, they don't care, but you have to have a belief in some higher power. And I feel like that's where I always was with my life. I feel like I always had a lot of deep reverence and respect for the earth growing up. I always felt very connected to the earth, very like recharged. I feel like I had a lot of intuitive spiritual things guiding me through most of my life to connect me with a lot of that stuff. And then, you know, the form changed a lot. And, but I think for me now, you know, I respect everyone's spiritual beliefs, of course. And as long as, you know, you're not using them to harm other people. But for me, you know, it was like piecing together a lot of things to make something that works for me. So like me, for example, right, I believe in like universal power, I believe in the law of attraction, I believe in that, but then I also, you know, believe very deeply in Islam and like that God is this omnipotent power that can guide us, and all of us also have that connection to God with our own intuition, and we can access that through prayer, through yoga, through journaling, through meditation, through breath work, through, you know, just again, this huge toolkit that we all have. And also God works for me. I know God works through other people. So that's why whenever I read birth charts or tarot for someone or coach for someone, I just always pray to be a channel to like help people hear what they need to hear to help them on their journey. So for me, I just feel like I can't imagine not having God be at the forefront of my version of God, at the forefront of God, and or the forefront of my mind, like all day, every day. I feel like it's even praying, you know, I feel like I had to spend a few years demystifying prayer as this, like, I grew up in not very religious household, but Irish Catholic was kind of like the, you know, what I grew up around. And so also have a deep respect for that religion. And so I understood, I was like, oh, praying is like, you know, where you kneel down and you say, dear God, you know, and you repeat a prayer. But I've learned through the years, prayer is just your communication with God and your voice. And, you know, you can pray even when you're in your car and just say, God, thank you for this thing, or God, give me guidance on this thing. Or, you know, I can't exist without some type of spiritual awareness going on. And I feel deeply connected to all religions, to like any holy sites, to, you know, anything like this feels very important for me. And I really think it's, again, and I believe everyone needs to have their own version of it in order to like have a comforting, fulfilled, peaceful life.
You know what you said, you talked a lot about honesty. My question here is, first of all, do you believe that we lie to ourselves about so many things? And secondly, how does someone start to tell the truth to themselves, and how will this help him through all his healing process,
Yeah, I
cope
think,
and anything?
yeah. And like you said, this is what I had to go through. I think we lie to ourselves, um, not because we're bad or stupid or malicious. I think it comes from, none of us have a perfect childhood. Even if you have a perfect childhood, it's like you have to adjust to being on earth. You learn limiting beliefs from other people just because we're humans. And so most of us learn like lying to ourselves. I think lying, people hear the word and think it's something intentional, but a lot of times it's just limiting beliefs we have that we learned around us that we don't necessarily know that we're believing. It's the power of the subconscious mind, right? So if you grew up in a home where your parents worked a lot, you might interpret that as I need to work a lot, or life is only for work, or I can be whatever I want to be through hard work. I mean, that story can mean so many things for so many different people. And so when we say lying to ourselves, I don't, like, everyone's version of truth is different. And so it's just, for me, I try to teach being aware of the stories that we've told ourselves in order to either change them, release them, just be aware of them. And so I think, it's like, okay, I'm going to stop lying to myself. Like, of course, we should, I think it's important to like tell the truth in terms of what we're conscious of. But when I talk about truth, I think that for me means more of like our subconscious beliefs about ourselves, things we've learned in our lives, patterns we've gone through. And of course, again, like I said, for me, I know I'm going to be, peeling that onion for my whole life. I'm going to go through my own truth over and over again. And I think that's a way that we can also do that as people, is just, there's going to be truths that work for us for a certain number of years of our lives, and then they don't. Like for me, I know when I was drinking alcohol and doing drugs, like that part of that kept me alive. Like I'm not promoting it, but I know that was the best I could do at the time, to have access to those things. And then once I got sober, I was like, okay, well, I know a truth I want to have now is to have a sober lifestyle. And so I know there's certain things in my life that work for however many years, and then I have to change them, or the other way around. And so I just mean truth is just, giving yourself the flexibility to move between different beliefs, to think about what you want, think about, ways that you want your life to change or be different. And not in a way of, shaming yourself, but just knowing we learned these things from somewhere and they served us for some purpose. But now, like, my soul is telling me I'm ready to change or shift. And again, going back to that belief of like, I'm ready to do this, and I'm ready for my honesty to be within myself and just take accountability for myself.
Yeah, so important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so inspiring what you're sharing with us, really. But you're also an author, right? So how did that come up? What inspired you to start writing? And generally, I want to know what inspires you in life.
Mm-hmm. I think, this was, again, another thing where God kind of took me where I needed to go to get this done. For a few years in my life, in my early 20s, I got therapy at the domestic violence shelter in Ohio after, some experiences I had with that. And so part of what my therapist worked with me through was, we did a lot of art therapy, which for me was very therapeutic, very amazing. I love talk therapy, of course, but for me, like, that was another tool that was really powerful and really wonderful. And part of it was just writing. And when I got sober, a part of the way I was being sober was I would write, like, any free minute I had to journal, because I just felt like I was going crazy, because it was just so much overstimulation, so much like awareness of things I hadn't felt for a long time. And eventually, I feel like my writing, again, is just a channel from God. I don't have to like sit and be like, what should I write about today? It's like, when I write poetry, when I think of poems, they just like come, like the whole thing will just come out, or it will come in chunks and I edit it again. But I don't ever have to sit there and be like, what am I trying to say? What is it? It just really feels just like a very clear download. And then I just write it, and that's it. And so it started when, again, I was at the domestic violence shelter getting therapy there, and just was like, oh, this is like helpful. This is, it was a lot of prompts of what affirmations you need to tell yourself. How do you need to process an experience? How do you need to just understand the world around you. I think poetry is just so beautiful, so helpful, just so otherworldly, so magical. I love all books. I love reading everything. But for me, poetry, I feel like is just really special in terms of connecting to, you know, another worldly experience and just feeling really mystical and magical and just a way to process, you know, I think writing about something in just like a descriptive way versus writing it as a poem for me are very two different experiences. And so it just kind of started like that. And then I was like, maybe this could be a book. And then I just made some books. And so I have 3 books already. And I'm very grateful. And then the
Great.
4th book is coming out soon, which I'm also very grateful for. And yeah, I feel like as long as my spiritual channel is clear. So like, as long as I'm praying, I'm connecting to God, I'm journaling, I'm, you know, trying to move forward or find beauty, as long as I feel like I'm taking care of my spiritual energy, then the creativity comes through and I can just, you know, just write. And so a lot of that is spending time in nature, traveling, you know, when we could before COVID with everything. Just even talking to people. I feel like if anyone, you, me, I, all of us, is really paying attention or really connecting to who we're talking to, or just really present and seeing what's going on, I think you can be inspired by anything as long as you're really being in the present moment instead of like, you know, building the perfect scenario to be inspired by.
I totally agree with you. You mentioned COVID, and you know, we have to talk a little bit about that. Where were you when it all started? How has it been for you? Is it difficult? Have you seen any opportunity during all this time online? What were and what are your feelings during all this, you know, very difficult period for everyone?
Yes. I first and foremost want to say I'm very fortunate in that I've had somewhere to live and I've been okay financially for the whole time. So I know I'm very fortunate in that sense. I'm in the United States, so not being handled the best here. If anyone's aware of the news, I feel like for me, the 2 things I really learned from COVID was that God's in control and not us. And I feel like I knew that, but you know, it was to be like, oh, God's in control, but I can go on vacation here and like take some time for myself. You know, I feel like it's really was literally, I feel like so many things that I relied on, just even like going to a coffee shop to sit and read a book there, or going to see my friends, or, you know, traveling. This is the longest I haven't been on an airplane in probably 10 years, you know? So just even being able to do things like that I really relied on, keeping my spiritual practice rich. It was like, okay, how can I connect to God if it's literally me in this house and God, and that's it. And so I feel like that was one thing that really stood out to me. And also, again, it's God's will. It's like, it's, you know, we think we can handle all this stuff, and then COVID comes and all the very normal things of even just leaving your house to go to work or just going to see your friends is just like not an option anymore. And then the other thing I feel like is going along with that is radical acceptance, which again, I talk about quite a bit, but just the ways that, you know, for me, like, well, I need to be having a job to do this, or I need to be able to, you know, go to this place at this time to feel like I'm doing something. I think for me, it's so much awareness of where I had attached so much of my own understanding and beliefs about myself and my life. And so how could I, you know, do that in a way that was just like, what was I refusing to accept, basically, came up. And in Islam, we have Ramadan, which is a holy month where we fast for the whole month, and then you break your fast at sunset with a group of people. And so for me to not be able to do that with anyone, because I'm staying with my family and they're not Muslim, and so for me to like literally have to do that holy month, which is so much about community, like completely by myself, like it was just me and God, you know, it's like I'm only fasting with this, I'm not breaking fast with anyone, you know, that was a whole nother experience. So I just feel, you know, 2020 is very hard for everyone, but I feel like for me, it's teaching me a lot about slowing down. Where are my priorities? What did I actually think was super important that's not super important? You know, just the normalized ways that I would rush and move and do all this stuff all the time, and then really thinking like, okay, is this something that I need to be doing or not? I think it's, you know, again, I'm very fortunate that it hasn't been very much of a struggle, and I've been healthy, which I'm of course very grateful for, but very much of a struggle financially or anything like that, to just think about, you know, just a lot of time. And I, of course, had a horrible time in the beginning. You know, I was crying every day, temper tantrums, very upset, like, you know, so, but again, I had to use a lot of my tools there, and not deny what I was feeling, but just be like, this is just what it is. So I feel like part of acceptance is just accepting that it sucks when it sucks, even if you don't like it.
You know, now lockdowns are beginning again. Here in the UK, we are starting on Thursday, and generally everywhere it's not being good again. So I imagine you have a lot of clients and people that want to have sessions now and discuss more about it because they don't feel good, because they feel depressed. What is, if we can give our audience now one advice, the first thing you would say, tell to someone that feels now that, you know, afraid, all these anxious, all these different feelings, that again, maybe people that maybe lose their jobs and anything, what would you, the first thing you would tell someone that feels like they're losing their center with with all this that is happening?
I would just say surrender. I mean, for me, it's the most important thing. And for me, surrender means like accepting what's happening. It means accepting God's in control and not me. And it doesn't mean that you give up or you don't care anymore. It just means like stop. We cause ourselves so much pain when we're just so resistant to what the reality is, what's happening. You know, it's like, I feel like so many people are in so much pain and emotional turmoil because they just want to act like this will be a normal year. This will be a year I can do all the things I can, and we just can't. And I feel like there's so much resistance to just accepting that, you know, even with the holidays coming up, right, the major Western holidays, like you can't have them how you want to have them. Even summer, you know, I know you got to travel, some places got to travel, but in the US, okay, you know, you could, but you know, so I just feel like there's so many things we do all year, every year, or every day that we're just so attached to, and we're just so like, this is how it has to be, and we cause ourselves so much stress instead of just being like, this sucks, but this is how it is this year, so what am I going to do with that? I feel like
To
instead of,
accept.
yes, I just feel like there's just so much resistance to just being like, there is a global pandemic, whether you like it or not, and you're gonna have to change your life around. So I think that's absolutely the first thing I would do, or I encourage people is just like, okay, what am I resisting and why?
And what is the role of gratitude in all this for you and generally, I mean, for your clients and the people you talk to?
I think, I mean, you know, as they say, gratitude is the attitude. I think for me, you know, if I don't live in a state of constant gratitude, then that's part of my spiritual practice. All my prayers every day, everything I do, I always say thank you, for anything. And just again, I feel like COVID, something so basic, is teaching us about our health, about, if for those of us who have somewhere to live right now, some kind of stability around that. I think that's so important. And you know, I just feel like this Western obsession with more, 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 and grow, grow, grow. And for me, I don't want to live like that. Like, I feel like there's a certain peak where I set some good balance in my life, and I don't need to be adding so many things all the time. And you know, there's a lot of, anyone can Google it, there's a lot of scientific studies and research that having gratitude really, it changes the function of your brain. It makes people happier and healthier. Just even in the morning and at night, a very quick like gratitude practice, like here's 3 things I'm grateful for. And you don't have to lie to yourself. You don't have to say I'm grateful for COVID, but you can say I'm grateful COVID taught me to be grateful for my health, you know, but you don't have to say you're grateful for COVID. So I think sometimes, again, like when we talk about lying to ourselves, there can be this disconnect of feeling like, oh, well, I should be grateful for COVID because of this. But like, no, you don't have to. You don't have to make yourself feel something that you don't feel, but there always is gratitude. Like even something as simple as I'm grateful I can breathe. Like it sounds so simple, but you know, it's really important.
Forget to say that, right? We
Yeah.
forget to be grateful about the simple things,
Mm-hmm.
the obvious things.
Yep. So I think it's just, I mean, it's mandatory. It's just, I don't know. Again, I feel like part of when I was really sick, I was just in such a place of lack and fear and like not abundance and not gratitude. And so I just feel like it's life changing. You know, it's a really, really important practice. I try to send a thank you note once a week. Not so much anymore because I don't see a lot of people, but I would try to give one once a week, even if it's just someone who helped me at a store who I thought was nice to me. And we can get into that mind game of like, oh, well, that's how people should act. And it's like, well, yeah, but they did. So I want to be thankful for it, or even something I just started doing recently is on social media, if I'm just scrolling mindlessly, then I try to set a timer for 5 minutes and like really leave like thoughtful comments to people that are kind, and just really trying to, there's small ways we can bring mindfulness and gratitude and presence into our day-to-day lives that really changes so much of our energy. I think we're taught it's so much about I have to buy this or have this or live here or do that to access these certain emotional tendencies in us, which of course we do. Your environment definitely affects you and is definitely important to think about and deal with. But I think we're taught to downplay how much power we have over our own interpretation of the events, and so I think a way to really access that is gratitude. It's a very high vibrational, very, very healing emotion to practice.
I would love to know more things about you. Like, okay, a book you love, and maybe a book you would propose to our audience to read, or your favorite author, or your favorite movie, your motto in life. I would like to know some things about you in that way.
Let's see. I don't really watch TV or movies. I feel like I'm very sensitive, and so just any like stimulation with that is like too much for me. And also as an addict, I know if I watch one thing, then I'll just like watch everything. So I don't really do that. I read a book this year called Secrets of Divine Love by the author is A. Helwa, and it's just basically about, for me, I had already converted to Islam when I read it, but for me it was just about, even if you're not Muslim, just the loving power of God and how God is all merciful and all compassionate. And I feel like for me to accept a spiritual practice, that was a really big shift I had to make, of just like not seeing God as the police officer, but as just like this all merciful and compassionate being that just wants us to be the best we can be and like doesn't judge us. And we project so many human emotions onto this being, however you believe your higher power, that is like so beyond all of that it's just like so silly, it's so stupid. So that book for me is really good. My favorite books of all time, my nerd alert moment, is the Hunger Games series. I love them, love them. I love them. I feel like they speak so much about I think a really important part of spiritual healing too is understanding that there are systems of oppression that exist in the world, and it's our job, based on what we have access to try to challenge those. So whether it's like dealing with patriarchy against women, or like anti-LGBT stuff, or colonialization, or just ways that there's so many people around the world that are being harmed and are suffering, and then we can just turn away from it. And so I feel like those books are so beautiful in terms of like the message of the power of the people and caring about people and not putting up for stuff and exploitation. And, so I love those books very much, because I feel like, they're kind of aligned with some of my own personal beliefs about how we need to take care of each other too. But yeah, I've read those books many times. I love them. So they're good.
And do you have like a motto or someone you really admire, or someone that, you talk to always when you have a problem? Your own coach you would like to share with us?
I feel like the most helpful thing I ever learned in my life was to rely on myself and God. I feel like, I think also we damage ourselves a lot. There's a book called Quiet, The Power of Introverts, that I read a few years ago. And it basically talks about like the invention of the personality and the celebrity. Like it was a very United States invention, many years ago. And so I feel like something that's also pretty harmful is like this obsession with celebrities and putting people on pedestals and all of that, because like, everyone's human, and so I feel like for me, I look to people who are selfless. I look to people who are really rooted in a lot of like centeredness and a lot of spiritual growth and spiritual focus on that. And if I'm having a hard time, I'll just pray like, God, show me someone who teaches about this thing to help me with my whatever. So if I, go to the bookstore and pray and then like find the book for me, or on YouTube, one will come up that really helps me, or, and I feel like, again, it's about asking for the help and then allowing what you call into your life to support you. And again, for me, like not judging the form that it takes or the person it comes as or the way it shows up, and just staying open to like, okay, I asked for help around this, so God brought me this. Am I going to accept it or not? Or is this not the right one, but that one is? But I feel like, again, something I really try to teach my clients or anyone I meet, and something I try to practice within my life, is like, there's nothing outside of you that can affirm you or give you more information about the right path for yourself, like stronger than you, and being still enough to hear what that guidance is, and like not clogged by drugs or alcohol or working too much or unhealthy relationships, or like so many times we feel like we can't hear God because we're so disconnected from our higher power, but they're there. It's just we're not connecting in that way. And I think I feel really inspired by people just telling their story, people just being truthful, people just really wanting to grow and expand in ways that are important, that I think, again, are about respecting the self and also taking care of and really, living a life that's also focused in service and support of people around us. Because everyone has a job to do. We all are here to, help do our own unique gifts that we can offer. So I just feel like I feel really inspired by, even just in my day-to-day life, if I see people like picking up litter off the ground or being extra kind in some way, or, I think it's everywhere if we're just looking for it.
Yeah. So from all these things you do so many things. Is there one that is like, you think you're destined to do it, or a combination? Or, if you could choose one thing to do, which one of all these would it be? Or it cannot be one, and you can tell me, no, I cannot choose, I want to do everything.
I feel like, it does seem a little crazy, because it's like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for me, the message, like, you pick one thing and that's, what you do. But I feel like, again, that's very limiting. I feel like what's happening now is so many people are realizing, like, oh, I'm good at these three things, so how can I combine them to offer my own unique gift to the world, right? So it's like, maybe I'm an educator, but I also am going to teach people, to pray and do yoga while we're learning about this thing. Or like, you can use your body to help send healing vibrations around the world when you do yoga, like as you're learning about this stuff. So I feel like for me, I pray all the time. I try really hard to not be attached to anything. So if I feel like the guidance I'm getting is like, stop doing this thing and do this thing instead, I'm open to that. Of course, it might be emotionally stressful and I might be resistant, but I know that all of my gifts were given to me on purpose, and they're all, as we talked about, like even 5 years ago, I didn't know how they were all going to come together, but I just feel like it's things that I have in my toolkit, and they either were an experience that helped me grow and be able to offer the gifts I am offering a little bit better, or I'm going to use them in the future. Ideally, I would like to run my own center that does a lot of like community based things for where it is, and also offers yoga, and then offers teachings I do, is a place for community come together, a lot of service oriented things, an educational center, but that's also focused on community. So that's, I feel like, is, when I was younger, I wanted to open a school. So it's a form of a school, but it's just, I'm just getting more clear as I get older, because I feel like the way that it can be offered is a little bit more attuned, instead of just like a traditional, tutoring center or school or something like this. So that's my long-term goal. But
is your dream also? Is this your life dream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just feel like it's, again, I feel like I'm still in education because of the ways that I can connect with certain people. And, I'm in yoga because I know that that's helpful for people's bodies. And I'm in astrology because it gives, a very specific message about people's, birth with their birth charts. Or, so I feel like I write, and that's another tool, so I just feel like, who am I to deny something that I feel like God is trying to encourage me to do in my life? I feel like, especially for women also, being humble as a woman means accepting how powerful and how amazing we are. There's a reason why so many organizations in the world focus on educating women and girls, because women and girls give back to the community so much once we know what we know and do what we do. And so I just feel like for women, part of being humble is being humble enough to accept that God made me this way and gave me this and this and this gift, and this is what I can offer the world.
So true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a final question concerning all these things that you do, because a lot of people asked me. So I will read this question because it is from someone that sent it to me. If you were to give advice to people on how to live the life they have dreamed of, can you give me 3 things you would tell them to do?
Good question. I mean, of course, I think it's different for everyone, the form it would take, but I think it's important if you want to live your dream life. Number 1 is just remember that you are meant to have an abundant, happy, and healthy life. So like, always remember that. And so a lot of times, you know, people say, I hate my life, but we don't hate our life. We hate the circumstances of the life or the things that are going on, or, you know, whatever. So I think that's the first one, remembering that you are meant for happiness, and it might not be the exact thing that you thought it was going to be, but you are meant to have a life of abundance. And if you really believe that, then I think that gives us strength to go through some of the hardships that we go through. And so I think that's the first one. Second one is the hardships don't last forever. That was a really hard one for me. I feel like, the older I get, the more agency I have in my life, the more I can kind of, when we're an adult, we can make things happen faster, or, we know someone, or we can go to this place, or we can get this job, or we can, and sometimes things just feels like they're not working. And I think it's just important to remember that if you feel like in your heart that there's a way that you can have this thing that you want, then it's just remember that like the blocks won't last forever, the hardships won't last forever. It's just making sure that you are focused enough and care enough about it to like keep moving forward. Like it's not going to be impossible forever, even if it feels like it is. I think. And then
good advice, really. I mean,
I tell myself all the time, in AA they always say one day at a time, and I feel like that's the very, very important. And then the last one I would say is just remembering that God is in control, or your higher power is in control, and not us. And so, as someone who really does believe in like personal empowerment, and then also like wanting to work to help heal the whole world, is knowing that like, I'm here and I'm creating my life, and I think I want these things, but we just have maybe a little tiny snapshot where, God might know this big vision for our life. And there's so many things we're so resistant to. But eventually, if you are healthy and emotionally intelligent and willing to be accountable, we realize, okay, once we get through the things that we're so mad about, like, okay, maybe that was, it had to be how it was. So just remembering that, there is a way. It might not be your way, but there will be a way, and there will be a way to make it happen. That's this is like a 3.5. This is the 4th one, but don't do it alone. That's the other thing too. I feel like for me, like when I tried to rely on my higher power and stuff, I was like, I can figure this out. I can do it. But I think a really important lesson for me too was if God is in control, God also gives us people who can help us, or situations or centers, or, like asking for help really is a really powerful way that we can also, again, honor our higher power and, all the people that are here to support each other. So that's like 3.
No, that was the last one was a really good one, because I also believe that we cannot do things alone. But I don't want to close with this one. I want to ask you for a closing question. Why do you do what you do? And this is something that we have shared also in the past, but I think it's very important, because yes, I know your dream and it's amazing and all you shared with us, but why do you actually do everything you do?
I just want, at the end of everything, I just want suffering to end. I feel like part of Earth is very hard and very challenging. It's very difficult to be here. I get that, and I understand that. And I think, just the way the world is set up right now, there's so many things that contribute to so much of our suffering that don't need to be. So I feel like I just think growing up, if I had access to some of the tools I have now, or some of the coping mechanisms, or my spiritual practice, it's like the situations maybe wouldn't have been as horrible or as intense or as whatever while they were happening. Or, I could have directed more of my energy on supporting, like the refugee crisis, or like supporting Palestine, or supporting like the anti-LGBT or pro-LGBT, but trying to challenge a lot of that stuff. So I just feel like, for me, if you feel good about yourself, if any of us feel good about ourselves, then we are more willing and able to not only feel peace within our lives, but also, like I mentioned, give back and give to other people and just help the world. It's like world peace, but I really want that. So I just think,
You should. We all should.
yeah, I feel like if we have lack and fear and pain in ourselves, then that's like what we're going to keep putting out in the world. But if we feel full and abundant and peaceful in ourselves, then we're going to, find our own unique way to help add that to the world around us. And so I think, if some of these tools and these concepts that I use are more normalized, then, maybe people won't have to spend as many years or as much time undoing so much stuff in their life and can instead like be adding and building something. I feel so grateful that I was so young when, kind of like my spiritual intervention and all these things kind of came into my life. But, even for me though, it's been very hard to unlearn so much. I still see my therapist. I've been seeing a therapist for over 10 years. I would like to go for the rest of my life because I know it's something that's very important for me. But, just all the ways that if we didn't have to like respond or like unlearn so many things, just how much potential we could all reach. So I just want to end suffering for the individual, the collective, the whole world is kind of what I'm motivated by.
And with that really nice message, I would like to thank you for today. It has been great, really. Thank you. Very inspiring. And, I'm very honored and happy that I had the chance to talk with you about all that. You're an amazing woman. And yeah, I'm very happy that I met you and that we did this today together.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure. You're the best. And this was really wonderful. So thank you.
Same here. So this was Erin. It was a very nice discussion and I hope you all enjoyed. Bye.